Okay. To ease back into all of this, I think it would be good to pull focus on the link between how we treat our bodies, what we choose to put into our bodies, and what we absorb into our bodies, and how all of that impacts our gut, specifically our gut lining and the permeability of that gut lining. And of course, in turn, downstream, what all of that means in terms of health and disease. Our steward for this corner of microbial exploration is my friend and podcast standout favorite, Dr. Zach Bush. Truly one of the most interesting minds working today to improve human and planetary health.
The first step is to kind of consider what is inflammation. Inflammation is actually a normal biologic response to an injury. The immune system lies throughout your body in different shapes and forms, but some 60% of the volume of the immune system and some 80% of the work done by the immune system is done in your gut lining. Mm-hmm. And the concept of the gut is poorly defined and poorly understood by the consumer as well as doctors, but it really starts in your sinuses. It is your barrier system between the outside world and what you breathe, the outside world and what you drink, eat, etc. This membrane is extremely interesting to look at in its engineering. It's such an interesting under-engineering event, this gut membrane. It is the largest surface area we have exposure to the outside world. It's 2 tennis courts in surface area versus only the 1.8 meters or so of your skin surface area. And so you've got this massive surface area, and the only covering of that surface is a cellophane-like layer of epithelial cells of the gut and sinuses and the rest that is about 50 microns in diameter. Which
it's like one cell thick, right?
One cell thick, which is, if you pluck a human hair and cut that in half, that's the thickness of your gut membrane. So you have this half a human hair cellophane layer that protects you from every bite of food you eat, every chemical that comes into your food chain, etc. So it seems like horrible engineering. But on the flip side, it tells us something about what we're engineered for. We need to be inherently in contact with the ecosystem and nature around us. And if we start to tinker and screw with that nature, that membrane is going to become very vulnerable and start to leak, and our immune system sits right behind that. There had been some papers coming out in the mid-2000s in the cancer world that were starting to say that the bacteria in your gut were predicting which cancers you would get. If you're missing these bacteria, you would get prostate cancer. If you had these bacteria, you would get breast cancer. That was so radically bizarre and out there for our current model, even to this day, as to how cancer worked. But now you fast forward 8-10 years, and now there's tens of thousands of articles that are showing that genomically, the bacterial genome is way more important in determining cancer than the human genome. And so this reality was hitting. And so in 2012, when we discovered these chemicals that look a little like chemotherapy that are made by bacteria and fungi in the soil, it suddenly closed the loop of, oh my gosh, what if the bacteria in our gut is doing the same thing? What if the bacteria and the fungi are actually our best source of medicine for everything? And so that's the direction we were going. But as soon as we put this into petri dishes with cancer cells and beyond, we suddenly realized, no, there's something way deeper happening with this information stream coming out of bacteria and fungi. And it was my chief science officer, Dr. John Gilday. He's a PhD in genetics and cell biology, and he was the first to realize that we had put our finger on the glyphosate toxicity issue, is that this communication network from the bacteria and fungi was actually supporting the protein structure in our gut lining. And so it turns out that the gut is held together as these trillions of cells that make up that cellophane layer by tight junctions. These are Velcro-like proteins that hold one microscopic cell to the next to create this coherent carpet of 2 tennis courts. And he had recognized before this, and a number of other labs had started to publish, that glyphosate seemed to increase the permeability of this membrane. And nobody was really sure why yet. That chemical was never patented as a weed killer. It's only been patented as an antibiotic, and then it was repatented as an antiparasite, antifungal.
Yeah, that was the original purpose of it, correct?
Well, it's the mechanism. It's the mechanism they recognized. And so the mechanism of glyphosate is to go in and block enzymes in soil bacteria, fungi, and plants. And that enzyme pathway is called the shikimate pathway, and it's important because it makes a number of the essential amino acids. Our bodies are composed of over 200,000 proteins, but we only have 20,000 genes. We have this pathetically dumb genome in the sense that a flea has 30,000 genes. So you're 2/3 as complicated as a flea at the gene level. which I find reassuring. If I can't find my keys or I'm having a bad day, I'm like, hey, I'm 2/3 as complicated as a flea. What are my real expectations here? But the reality is we're very simple at the genetic level, and yet we make over 200,000 proteins from a bunch of amino acids. There's 26 amino acids that will build those 200,000 proteins. Those 26 amino acids are just like the 26 letters of the English alphabet in the sense that the vast majority of those are useful, but not critical. But the vowels, these 8 vowels in our language, if you subtract one of those vowels, you can affect hundreds of thousands of words. The vowels in the amino acid vocabulary here are the essential amino acids, which if you start to tweak any of those 9, you're going to start to lose tens of thousands of protein structures in their functionality and in their unique form. And so those essential amino acids, not only are they important like the vowels, they also can't be made by the human body. So those 9 have to come from your food chain somewhere. And it turns out that they are only made by the bacteria, the fungi, and the plants. You don't have a shikimate pathway in your human cells. And so these essential amino acids are blocked through the shikimate pathway by Roundup. And so imagine treating a food chain with a chemical that blocks the ability of these plants to make the building blocks for a healthy human body. Mm-hmm. Forget about a human. It's a dog, a cat, any mammal, any complex multicellular biology is going to depend on these essential amino acids. And we literally, in the last 15 years, subtracted out the ability to build the body because we changed the 26 letters.